Omega Morgan is known for extreme hauls, but this one may have been the most challenging to date.
You have a sophisticated customer that, demands perfection in your pre-planning, which is great, right? We love that type of customer. You've got a piece that is just massive that type of system has never seen and frankly wasn't built for. You have to design a trailer ahead of time that will work for that, that unfortunately you didn't get a plan with. And then, oh, by the way, once all that's done, you got to get this whole thing moved down the road and across an entire province.
These turbine runners would be the heaviest loads ever to cross British Columbia and would travel more than 1,100 kilometers. Each weighed 380,000 pounds and measured around 24 feet wide and 13 feet tall. The convoy required to transport them was 225 feet long and would traverse the only viable route from Prince Rupert to northern British Columbia. In 2018, Omega Morgan navigated wildfires across British Columbia to secure a route study. With project approval in 2019, the broader team dug further into logistics.
I knew this was going to be a tough project, and so I picked the guys with the most experience, making sure the team worked well together, they gelled, grit, determination, flexibility, and I would say more than anything, creativity, because I knew we were going to be in situations on that project where creative and critical thinking were going to be paramount.
While Troy worked on selecting a crew to execute the job, Mark Richardson, the project manager, began building the traffic management plan, a small book that would cover everything from the hall configuration, the number of pilot cars, traffic control supervisors, and emergency traffic contingencies, to every detail required for logistical safety.
That book took us a year to construct, a year to get approved through the agency.
The permit required to take the loads from Prince Rupert to Fort St. John cost $43,000 and took nearly a year and a half to acquire for the first load. The team poured hours into checking and rechecking the plan and discovered the original plan for a shipped barge and roll-off onto land offload was not safely feasible. They pivoted to looking for a ship-to-barge and crane offload solution.
They wanted to unload on an undeveloped bank. I went through a whole bunch of iterations of trying to figure out how to do a roll-off, but couldn't do it. Not with those kind of tides, it'd be too risky. So we ended up using a large derrick.
The location of the barge was challenging because of the tide swings that Prince Rupert gets. On any day, it could be above a 20-foot tide swing.
With the extreme tide swings, the team would only have a 4-hour window for safe offload each day. With creativity and flexibility, the turbine runners were able to be delivered safely from ship to land, but many hurdles still lay between them and their final destination. Before Omega Morgan came on the job, the customer had already completed bridge engineering approvals for the 110 bridges along the route.
They had sized a trailer that they thought would work, but when it came down to it, the deck on the 12-dolly trailer wasn't sufficient to take the loading. So that's when we got to take a look at it. But the fact that they had already done all the third-party engineering on the bridges constrained us to basically that same footprint with the same spacing of a 12-dolly system.
The approved trailer could not safely accommodate the shape and weight of the piece, risking catastrophe without further innovation. So Omega Morgan engineer Ralph DiCaprio came up with a way to expand the structural support.
The trailer's kind of like a U shape, and the torpedo tubes are installed at the top of the U. That really reduces the amount of stresses that go into the bed of the trailer, and so it can reduce the bending moments on the trailer by 30–40%.
Ralph also designed custom bat wings to secure the torpedo tubes along the outside of these colossal loads. Ralph's brilliant batwing solution solved the trailer capacity issue, but added another layer of complexity for the route.
when we went and we ran the survey, we didn't think that we were going to have the bat wings on there. And so you go and you run a survey at 24 feet wide the whole way, which effectively takes up both lanes of the highway. And then you add another 2.5 feet to get out to 26.5 feet wide, right? And it's a whole different ball game when you're weaving through the mountains around BC, and you have, you know, new signs that are coming into play, railroads arms that are coming into play, rock outcroppings that are coming into play.
There was Car Wash Rock and Mile 35 were two really tight locations that we had to go out and physically measure. I had Tyler Postma stand with a 10-foot measuring stick so I could establish a vertical scale, and then we measured across the road. And it was pretty tight.
There we physically fit with about 3 inches of clearance on the rock.
The trailer axles needed to be narrowed to 14 feet, but they would also need to encroach over the railroad tracks to avoid the rock.
The trailer had to slide over, in which case we were actually overhanging the CN rail tracks. So had to go through the process, get a permit from the CN Railroad to encroach on their facility and to get their assistance to clear trains.
While Ralph, Mark, and others worked through the trailer configuration and the growing list of logistics, Kai Farrar tackled the challenge of securement without anything touching the delicate outer surfaces of the turbine runners.
So the only place that you could basically touch the turbine was at the very base of it. So I put a band system around that bolted to the trailer deck, and that allowed us to restrain the fore and aft and the side to side. But the vertical hold down was a challenge because you can't put chains over the top. There's no D-rings, there's no swivel hoist eye placements or anything. So what we were able to do was, it has a single lifting attachment at the top, and you can get chains underneath through the center of the turbine and reach up and get hold of the lifting trunnions. And basically we were able to get enough chains through that with softeners. We were using fire hose tubing. You put the chains through the tubing, and then only the rubber hits on the inside surface, and the inside surface is just cast. It's not machined, so less critical. And we're able to get the hold down portion of the securement through that.
Closing the entirety of Highway 16 from Prince Rupert to Terrace was no small feat. As the only route across the province, many entities needed to align for road closure.
So each night, the haul crew was 9 people itself, belonged to Omega Morgan. Pilot car and traffic control was another 25 people a night. We had CVSE traveling with us and some promotional teams, either from the customer or from the ministry. So had a group of about 51 people that we had to keep updated daily for the week-long transportation.
Out of the 110 bridges on the route, 20 had to be monitored with a bridge-specific engineer on the ground. After the first bridge, the team faced danger at Rainbow Pass, a totally unpredictable mountain pass, the first of 2 along the route. At a moment's notice, an avalanche could hit, it could freeze, and the pass required constant monitoring to avoid black ice.
It was literally wake up every morning wondering what the next day was going to bring because we had no idea. You could look at the radar, you could look at the forecast, but it would change hour by hour.
There was one instance where it was raining when we pulled out of the gate in Prince Rupert, and by the end of the night it had snowed 14 inches on us, and it turned that quick.
Every night before we would have a safety meeting between the pilots, traffic control, the head guys from the traffic control, myself, the other guy, the trailer operators, push truck drivers. And as far as the safety end of it goes, just really, really good communication.
Yeah, me and Dan, one on each side, and we'll watch it through them. When we add that fourth truck, I think it's an 18-speed, so we're going to have 3 18-speeds. These guys are going to have to really talk to each other.
We had a lot of redundancies built in. We had a spare truck with us, semi-tractor, that ran with the load. We had an entire mobile shop basically inside one of those gear trailers that we could just about fix anything on the road that we had to, and we had to. There were times when we had to.
When the final 4 of the 6 turbine runners finally arrived in Prince Rupert in November of 2021, the area experienced severe and dangerous flooding. halting the project until December 8th, when it was safe to continue. But the rain had now turned into snow, causing a new set of challenges.
As they're pushing all that snow off, where do they push the snow? They push it into the places where you normally park, right? So now, when you're pulling off to park or when you're pulling off to clear traffic, right, that doesn't exist anymore because it's full of snow, or to a lesser extent. And again, usually when you're seeing those pull-offs, there's enough space for maybe 1 or 2 semis, right, that are 10 foot wide, right? Well, we're 26 foot wide.
The one turbine, the highway was not cleared wide enough. If for some reason we had to meet an emergency vehicle, we could not move over, we could not get them around, so we opted not to move. And that was during COVID, when the highways department was short-staffed, trying to clear roads, trying to clear pullouts. So there was lots going on.
With mounting delays and challenges from the start, the final leg of the journey didn't ease in complexity. From Chetwynd, the team organized logistics for the turbine runners to sit in storage while awaiting safe conditions for crossing 100 kilometers of treacherous bush road.
The bush road portion, we would just sink out of sight in the mud if it wasn't frozen.
Roughly, you need about 2 feet of frozen ground underneath, because you're dealing with sinkholes, you're dealing with frost heaves.
It was unpredictable. At times, the team had a green light to go, but within 24 hours, the weather had changed and the load got canceled. One load never found a safe window and had to sit for an entire year until the bush road was safe to cross.
Yeah, when the 6th one arrived on site, it was a huge relief. It took 3 winters of transport to get all 6 there on site.
Originally, we thought we were going to move them all in the summer, and this thing was going to be basically a 2-year project.
On the Omega Morgan side, we had roughly 15,000 man-hours in the project by the time we completed all 6 units.
Against all odds, and under the harshest conditions, Omega Morgan had successfully moved the 6 heaviest loads ever to cross British Columbia.